Emily often longed for the carefree simplicity of her youth. Memories of sunny afternoons in Florida came flooding back, particularly when she was alone. Life back then, surrounded by familiar routines and faces, felt worlds away from the complicated adulthood she now navigated. Past relationships resurfaced in her thoughts, their lessons shaping the woman she had become. Every heartbreak left its mark, a reminder of who she was. Glancing at the clock, Emily noticed it was 1 p.m. on a Saturday. Normally, drinking wine this early would be out of the question, but today, she made an exception. Her eyes fell on a slender red box on the coffee table, a recent arrival that stirred sadness rather than joy. She carried the box to her bedroom, placing it on the bed before rummaging through her closet. After pushing aside shoes and keepsakes, she found a plastic case filled with small, colorful boxes. She slid the red one in place, wondering why she couldn't let these things go. By chance, she opened one box, revealing a postcard and a CD. Curious, she played the CD, and When I Fall in Love by the Letterman poured softly into the room. The postcard brought back vivid memories of the day it arrived at her office, attached to a massive bouquet. Her coworkers had hovered around, eager to know who sent the flowers. With a mixture of pride and embarrassment, Emily read the card aloud. When I give my heart, I give it completely. If I can't, I won't fall in love. And when I feel that you feel it too, that's when I'll fall in love with you. Her colleagues teased her playfully, but their curiosity lingered. Anna, a coworker, quipped, "That's some guy. Does he have a brother?" Emily smiled, allowing herself to believe she might have found something special. But even as she tried to move forward, David Brooks, her first love, never left her mind. He had been her prom date, her first everything. Yet when he left for Stanford, their relationship faded until it dissolved completely, leaving her heartbroken. Struggling to cope, Emily dropped out of college and took a tedious job at Allstate Insurance. Her days felt repetitive, broken only by evening walks with her friend Megan. Though she held on to hope that David might contact her, the silence became clear when she learned he had started dating someone else. The news devastated her, yet she clung to fantasies of being Mrs. Dr. David Brooks. No matter how she tried to move on, his memory lingered. Emily had always drawn attention, not for conventional beauty, but for a natural allure that captivated men. Standing 5 feet 5 inches tall, with long brown hair and an easy sensuality, she was often the subject of admiration. After David, she dated several men, but none of the relationships lasted. Her lingering feelings for him often got in the way. At 25, she met Ryan, a man unlike her past boyfriends. He joined the army at 18, serving in Iraq, Germany, and Afghanistan before retiring and opening an auto repair shop near Emily's workplace. Their first meeting was by chance. Emily and Megan had walked into his shop when her car wouldn't start. That day, she wore a white, low-cut top with black polka dots, a miniskirt, and heels, catching Ryan's eye immediately. "Hello? Anyone here?" Emily called out, her voice echoing in the garage. Ryan appeared, offering to help. A loose wire turned out to be the issue, and he fixed it quickly. Emily, grateful and bold, thanked him with a kiss on the cheek and invited him to dinner. Flustered but intrigued, Ryan accepted. For a brief moment, Emily thought of David but pushed the regret aside. Ryan seemed worth exploring. She handed him her business card and asked him to call for directions. As Emily and Megan walked away, Megan expressed concern, but Emily dismissed it with a laugh, promising to call after the date. They both giggled as Emily told Ryan to arrive at 7 p.m. Ryan arrived early but waited until exactly 7 to knock. Emily, busy stirring sauce on the stove, took her time answering. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, enjoying the anticipation of making him wait. When she finally opened the door, her warm smile greeted him. "Come in," she said sweetly, accepting the wine and flowers he brought. She placed the bouquet in a vase, noticing the way his eyes lingered on her. She wore a white blouse tucked into black jeans, barefoot, an effortless look that Ryan found irresistible. Dinner was chicken cacciatore over spaghetti with her homemade sauce. Conversation flowed easily. Ryan shared stories of his military service, while Emily talked about her college days and her passion for watercolor painting, pointing out her artwork hanging on the walls. Ryan revealed he owned 3 auto repair shops and had contracts with rental companies, the government, and local businesses. Emily found herself impressed by his success and grounded demeanor. As the evening wound down, Emily suggested he stay longer. Tempted but cautious, Ryan declined, wanting to take things slow and meaningful. Emily appreciated his restraint, even as she felt a flicker of disappointment. Emily appreciated Ryan's respectful approach that first night, seeing it as a sign of his sincerity and the promise of something genuine. Ryan, on the other hand, went home restless, unable to sleep as thoughts of Emily consumed him. Meanwhile, Emily called Megan to recount the evening, including her bold invitation and Ryan's gentlemanly refusal. Megan was stunned. "He turned you down? He must be gay," she joked. Emily laughed and assured her that his goodnight kiss proved otherwise. While Ryan tossed and turned, Emily slept peacefully, already imagining a future with him. For months later, Ryan realized he was in love with Emily, a truth she had known long before. A year after their first meeting, they married in a small ceremony surrounded by friends and family. They moved into Ryan's home on Kensington Street, where they began their life together. Now, Emily reminisced as she put away the CD she'd just played. She reached for a gold case that had been special to her since her wedding day. On the morning of her wedding, a FedEx delivery arrived containing a card and CD player. As her bridesmaids helped her get ready, she played So Much in Love by the Times and teared up. Megan, always practical, warned her not to ruin her makeup, making everyone laugh and averting a bridal crisis. At the church, Emily saw Ryan in his tuxedo, standing tall and proud. He looked at her with pure admiration, and she vowed to make him happy. Remembering this moment now, her smile faltered. Had she lived up to that promise? She quickly tucked the card and CD back into the gold case and moved on to the silver box. This silver case reminded her of their first wedding anniversary. Emily had gone all out to prepare, from visiting the salon to getting a Brazilian wax, a detail Ryan had hinted he'd appreciate. When he came home, she descended the stairs, looking radiant. Ryan, captivated, dropped the silver box he was holding, spilling its contents. He knelt to retrieve it and handed her a jewelry box. "Happy anniversary, my love," he said. Inside was a stunning diamond necklace. Delighted, Emily asked him to put it on her. She admired herself in the mirror, overwhelmed by its beauty. Ryan, overjoyed by her happiness, watched her lovingly. Then, he played a CD from the silver box, setting the mood with The Way You Look Tonight by Frank Sinatra. Taking her hand, he asked, "May I have this dance, beautiful lady?" They swayed together, deeply in love. When the song ended, Ryan suggested skipping dinner and heading straight to the bedroom. Emily laughed and refused. "I've spent way too much time and money getting ready. We're going out." Despite his protests, she convinced him to enjoy the evening as planned. They dined at a Japanese steakhouse, laughed at a comedy show, and ended the night dancing at a piano bar. On the drive home, the air between them sizzled with anticipation. Emily cherished the memory as one of their most perfect nights. She pulled out a diamond choker from her jewelry box, kissed it gently, and let a tear slip down her cheek. After putting it away, she opened another silver box and played Nat King Cole's Unforgettable. It reminded her of their second anniversary. That night, she surprised Ryan by waiting in a sheer negligee. He arrived with 2 gift boxes. Inside were a diamond bracelet and earrings. She insisted he put them on her, then handed him a CD to play. They spent the evening laughing, sipping wine, and eating pizza. "This is even better than last year," Ryan had said. Emily smiled. "Maybe we should repeat the workout." Their nights often ended this way, filled with intimacy and laughter. The next morning, Emily read Ryan's card. "Unforgettable in every way and forever. That's how you'll stay. It's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks I'm unforgettable too." She thought of that pale blue negligee, now lost in one of their moves. It had held so many special memories. Sighing, she put the card and CD back into the box and turned her attention to a white case. She avoided the painful blue ones for now. The last white box symbolized a turning point in their marriage, Ryan's innocence lost. 5 months after their second anniversary, David, now Dr. Brooks, re-entered Emily's life. He showed up at her office, and the moment their eyes met, old feelings ignited. When David suggested lunch, Emily agreed, ignoring the disapproving looks from her colleagues, who adored Ryan and sensed trouble. Lunch was more than catching up. It rekindled her fantasies of David. Though she told herself it was harmless, deep down, she knew the truth. She was willing to betray her marriage. When she returned to the office, Megan confronted her, her tone sharp with concern. "What are you doing, Emily? Don't you remember how he left you? Don't ruin your marriage over him." Emily brushed it off. "It's just lunch," she insisted. But Megan wasn't convinced. "You're playing with fire," she warned. Emily promised to stay loyal to Ryan, though even she doubted her resolve. For weeks, Emily and David kept things platonic. Lunches, friendly conversations. But soon, they progressed to drinks after work when Ryan stayed late, and eventually, date-like evenings. David was patient, gradually pulling Emily closer. He wasn't sure if it was love or just ego, but her marriage didn't bother him. Emily, on the other hand, felt the pull of temptation. When Ryan had to travel to Pittsburgh for a business conference, he asked her to join him, but she declined, using it as an excuse to see David. Emily knew she was crossing a line. Yet, she couldn't resist. While Ryan was away for 5 days, Emily crossed the line she'd secretly been tiptoeing toward. As soon as Ryan's flight left, she invited David over, and for nearly a week, they indulged in their rekindled romance, sleeping in Ryan's bed, sharing meals, and laughing as though their betrayal carried no weight. David, a practiced seducer, knew exactly how to win her over. By the week's end, Emily was convinced she should leave Ryan and start fresh with David, who promised they'd soon move into a new house together. On Saturday morning, just hours after David left, a florist delivered a bouquet along with a white box from Ryan. Inside was a CD with the song 6 Days on the Road, a surprise he had planned before his trip. Emily was touched by the gesture, but immediately felt the anxiety of keeping her infidelity hidden. She dreaded the next 2 weeks, knowing she had to maintain the charade. When Ryan returned at 4 p.m., he was eager to see his wife, expecting a warm and passionate welcome. Emily greeted him with a hug and kiss, but when he pulled her close later that evening, she brushed him off. "I'm already tired. Maybe tonight, okay?" she said dismissively. Ryan, confused and hurt, muttered, "Maybe tonight?" He couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. His once loving wife seemed distant and detached. Dejected, he unpacked, sorted laundry, and wandered into the kitchen, where Emily was cooking. He wrapped his arms around her, but she recoiled. "Not now. I'm busy," she snapped, pushing him away. Ryan retreated to the living room, staring out the window, piecing together his suspicions. Something had shifted while he was gone, and Emily wouldn't, or couldn't, talk about it. Emily avoided his gaze, guilt weighing heavily on her, knowing he was beginning to sense the truth. After dinner, Ryan dragged her to the bedroom, seeking some semblance of closeness. But afterward, he showered, got dressed, and left the house without explanation, returning late Sunday night. When he walked back through the door, Emily asked coolly, "Where were you? You didn't call." "I had paperwork at the store," he snapped. Her detached tone only fueled his frustration. "Don't you have a phone? Are your fingers broken?" he retorted, shutting down any further conversation. That night, Emily quietly put away the white box and its disc, feeling the tension between them growing unbearable. Still grappling with guilt, Emily opened the first of the dreaded blue boxes. Inside was a CD she hadn't touched in years. It came with a bouquet of lavender flowers, a symbol of distrust. She reluctantly played it, the opening notes of Bob Seger's "Why Don't You Stay" filling the room. The lyric struck her like a punch. "I know it's late. I know you're tired. I know I'm not in your plans." The song transported her back to the day it arrived. Her office colleagues, who had begun to notice her growing closeness to David, watched with disapproval. Laura, an older coworker, approached her with a knowing look. "Emily, what have you done?" she asked gently. Emily, defiant, replied, "I'm leaving Ryan. In 2 weeks, I'm moving in with David." Laura shook her head in disbelief. "You're making a huge mistake. Your husband adores you. This new guy won't last. Don't throw away your marriage. Emily dismissed her, but the words lingered. Anna and Megan stayed behind, pressing her further. Are you really leaving Ryan? Anna asked. Yes, Emily snapped, her temper flaring. Anna nodded silently and walked away, but Megan's disappointment was palpable. I warned you. Don't come crying to me when this all falls apart, she said before leaving too. Despite their warnings, Emily convinced herself she was making the right choice. She put the CD away, questioning why she hadn't listened to Megan's advice. That evening, she lashed out at Ryan. Why did you send me this CD? She yelled. I'm your wife. Really? Ryan, his patience wearing thin, hissed. You seemed more interested in someone else last Saturday. The postcard and the song just matched my thoughts. You're wrong, Ryan. Just wrong, Emily retorted, knowing deep down he was right. She shoved the box away, unable to admit the truth even to herself. The second blue box was no easier to face. She remembered receiving it the day after the Why Don't You Stay CD. Inside was a letter from Ryan, expressing his heartbreak and confusion. The accompanying CD played Ronnie Millsap's Stranger in My House. Emily didn't call Ryan after hearing it, stunned by how clearly he saw through her. She had never admitted the truth to him, or to herself. The third blue box contained the memory she dreaded most. By this point, Ryan had begun spending more nights at the office, giving her and David plenty of opportunities to meet. One Friday, assuming Ryan wouldn't come home, Emily invited David over. She didn't know that Ryan had planned to come home that night with flowers and a CD in an effort to salvage their marriage. Ryan left work at 8:30 p.m., parked a few houses down, and quietly entered their home, carrying flowers and a white box. As he walked through the house, he heard voices upstairs and the unmistakable sound of the bed creaking. He froze, memories of their first anniversary flashing through his mind, only to be shattered by the reality unfolding above him. He climbed the stairs slowly, avoiding the creaky fifth step. Sweat dripped from his face as he pushed open the bedroom door and saw his worst fear come to life. Emily in bed with David Brooks, the man she had always loved. Tears streamed down Ryan's face as his heart broke. He thought about confronting David but decided against it, unwilling to risk legal consequences or endure Emily taking David's side. Quietly, he went back downstairs, left the flowers and the shattered CD on the kitchen table, and slammed the door behind him as he walked away. Upstairs, Emily heard the door slam and froze. Did you hear that? She asked David. He shrugged it off, eager to continue. Emily, uneasy, put on her robe and went downstairs. Seeing the flowers and broken CD on the table, she realized Ryan knew. Her stomach sank with guilt. She hadn't meant for him to find out this way, even though she had planned to leave him. David joined her, sneering, "How pathetic." Emily didn't agree but said nothing. Ryan didn't return for a week. In his absence, David practically moved in, and Emily found herself missing that shattered disc. It felt like the beginning of her unraveling. She picked up a blue box, inserted the disc, and read the card. Roy Orbison's Running Scared played, the lyrics echoing Ryan's desperate plea. Will you leave with him, or will you stay with me? The box had arrived without flowers, signaling trouble. At work, Emily hesitated to open it until Megan and Laura offered to sit with her in the car. Reluctantly, she let them in and played the disc. Megan wept, feeling Ryan's pain through the song and his message. I'll be home Saturday morning. Please decide by then. I hope you choose me. Laura asked gently. What are you going to do, Emily? I'm leaving with David, Emily said without hesitation. Laura shook her head sadly. I wish I had a man who loved me enough to fight for me after I cheated. Don't throw this away. Laura, you've been divorced twice, Emily shot back. Yes, Laura admitted, but I realized too late that my first husband was the love of my life. Emily remained firm, convinced David was the one. Megan sighed, disappointed. I warned you, Emily. Don't come crying to me when this falls apart. Emily returned home that evening and shared the plan with David. Leave before he gets back. Let him come home to an empty house, David suggested. I owe him the truth. I'll tell him face to face, Emily insisted. Do it by Saturday, David replied coldly. On Saturday morning, Emily sat at the kitchen table, suitcases packed by the door. Ryan walked in at 10 a.m., saw the luggage, and froze. Without a word, he grabbed a beer and sat across from her. "I guess you've made your decision," he said bitterly. "What decision?" she asked. "You're leaving with him." "Yes," she admitted quietly. Ryan nodded, his expression hardening. "Then there's no point in fighting for you." "I'm sorry," Emily whispered. "Get out of my house," he said coldly. When she asked for help carrying her bags, Ryan snapped, "It's your choice to leave. Carry them yourself." Stunned, Emily carried her luggage to the porch and texted David to pick her up. She wanted to explain, but Ryan had shut her out completely. Looking back through the window, she saw him sobbing in the kitchen. When he noticed her watching, he angrily ripped off his wedding ring and threw it on the table. He walked to the window, met her gaze with hate, and slowly closed the blinds. When David arrived, he insulted Ryan loudly as he carried Emily's bags to the car. Emily felt relieved Ryan didn't confront him, but couldn't shake her unease. "I hoped we could part as friends," she thought. Instead, she focused on David, convincing herself she was happy to start a new life with him. Later that day, Emily placed the disc and card back into the blue box, reflecting on the irony of her broken promises to Ryan. She had once vowed to do everything to make him happy, but now she had destroyed him. She picked up another blue box, remembering the events tied to it with painful clarity. The box brought her back to Ryan's cousin Claire's wedding. On the day of the ceremony, Claire pulled Emily aside, asking bluntly, "Do you really love Ryan? Don't hurt him." Claire shared Ryan's painful past, losing his mother to cancer at 7, his father's descent into alcoholism, and his feeling like a burden to his adoptive family. "He grew up tough and isolated," Claire said, her voice heavy with emotion. "Do you know about his scars?" Emily nodded, thinking of the military injuries Ryan had mentioned. But Claire revealed another story. "He got that knife wound protecting me in a bar fight," she said. "Two men attacked me, and Ryan stepped in. He saved me. He's the most loyal person I know." Emily had felt overwhelmed by love for Ryan that day, promising Claire she'd never hurt him. Now, years later, she sat in silence, realizing how deeply she had failed him. The Monday after their confrontation, the blue box from that memory arrived at her office. Unlike before, there were no flowers. "He doesn't think I deserve them anymore," Emily thought. After work, she played the CD in her car with Megan and Laura. The Bee Gees' "To Love Somebody" filled the air. The lyrics hit her hard. "There's a light that never shone on me before. I live and breathe for you. But what good is it if I don't have you?" Tears streamed down her face as she finally grasped the depth of Ryan's love and the weight of what she had destroyed. "I was the light he needed," she whispered, "but I stole that from him." Regret consumed her as the song ended. If she had known then what she knew now, she thought, she'd still be married to Ryan. As Emily, Megan, and Laura walked out of work that Friday, a familiar voice called out, "Emily, wait." Turning, they saw Ryan jogging toward them in his signature tight blue jeans, a short-sleeved blue shirt, and work boots. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She didn't want to admit it, but he looked as good as ever. Laura leaned in, whispering, "If he were mine, I'd never let him go." Emily shot her a sharp look, but deep down, Laura's words stung. She'd once felt that way about Ryan. Safe, cherished, desired. Now, standing here, she felt nothing but awkwardness. Ryan approached, holding a white box in his left hand. "Hi," he said, his gaze sweeping over Emily from her knees to her eyes. His expression was unreadable, but Emily could feel the weight of his presence. "Hi," she replied, her voice quieter than intended. Ryan nodded at Megan and Laura, greeting them politely. They nodded back, both watching him carefully, as if trying to gauge his intentions. After a moment of tense silence, Ryan spoke again. "Emily, can I talk to you for a few minutes?" Emily hesitated. "I don't know, Ryan. I have to get home. David's waiting for me." "It'll only take 5 minutes," he pleaded. "Surely you can spare that much for an old friend?" There was something in his tone that softened her resistance. She nodded reluctantly, but shot a glance at Megan and Laura. When Ryan asked them for privacy, they refused to leave. Ryan smirked faintly, his voice laced with resignation. Looks like I'll have to do this in front of an audience. Turning to Emily, he said, please let me finish without interrupting. I need to say this all at once, or I won't get through it. Emily nodded again, folding her arms protectively across her chest. I know I'm not a college graduate or some smooth-talking guy. I've always tried to show my love through songs and meaningful lyrics, but maybe that wasn't enough. I loved you more than you'll ever know, Emily, and I was happy, so happy, with our life together. I didn't realize you were unhappy, and for that, I'm sorry. Ryan's voice cracked slightly, but he pressed on, holding out the white box. This is my last gift to you. If this song doesn't mean anything, I won't bother you again. I won't come to your workplace, your new home, or anywhere else. If we run into each other, it'll be purely by chance. If your car breaks down, you can bring it to my shop, but this time, I'll charge you. Emily couldn't suppress a small smile, remembering how they first met. The hint of nostalgia tugged at her, but she quickly buried it. One more thing, Ryan added, his voice softening. Thank you for 3 wonderful years. They were the best of my life. I'll always remember you with love. He turned to Megan and Laura, addressing them directly. I'm glad Emily has friends like you. I know you'll look out for her. I hope you know I'd never hurt her. His voice faltered on the word hurt, but he finished with dignity. This is goodbye. I wish you both the best. Without another word, Ryan turned and walked away, his head held high, though Emily knew him well enough to see the tension in his shoulders. Laura, her eyes brimming with tears, hurried after him and hugged him tightly. You're a good man, Ryan. If anyone bothers Emily, I'll let you know. Megan followed, offering him a quiet embrace, though she still didn't hide her doubts about Emily's choices. As they returned to Emily, Laura turned to her and said, if you let him go after that, David better be worth it. Megan, shaking her head, muttered, he isn't. Emily stayed silent, unsure of what to say. They walked to her car together, and once inside, she opened the white box. The tension hung heavy as Emily hesitated to play the CD. Should I listen to it? She asked, glancing at her friends. You owe it to him, Laura said firmly. Megan stayed silent, arms crossed. Emily finally slid the disc into the player. The Beatles' That Boy began to play, its bittersweet melody filling the car. The lyrics cut through her like a knife. That boy took my love away, but I'll forgive him if he makes you happy. Emily felt her stomach twist as she realized the song reflected Ryan's acceptance of her betrayal. Despite everything, he still hoped she would find happiness, even if it wasn't with him. Tears welled in her eyes. She couldn't deny the truth anymore. Ryan's love had been pure, patient, and unwavering. She placed the CD back in the box, overwhelmed by the weight of her choices. Her mind drifted to the first white box she'd ever received from Ryan. It had arrived on a Sunday morning, back when everything still felt simple. She'd been heading to the mall with Megan, excited about a picnic Ryan had planned for later that day. How's it going with your mechanic? Megan teased as they drove. He's not just a mechanic, Emily snapped. He owns his own business. Okay. Calm down, Megan replied with a smirk. So, what's going on between you two? Emily hesitated, then said, he loves me. I can tell by the way he looks at me, how he always makes sure my car is taken care of, and how he surprises me with lunch. He's protective and kind. Megan pressed further. And you? Do you love him? I think I do, Emily admitted. But David's still on my mind. Megan frowned. David left you and never looked back. Ryan's here. He loves you. If you want to keep him, you need to figure things out soon. Emily thought about Megan's words as they shopped. Deep down, she knew Ryan was good for her, but the pull of her unresolved feelings for David made it impossible for her to fully commit. That evening, Emily and Ryan had their picnic at River Park. He brought food, wine, and a soft blanket, setting the stage for a perfect evening. They laughed, talked, and soaked in the beauty of the park until Ryan had to leave for a business meeting. Call me tomorrow after your meeting? Emily asked as he kissed her goodbye. You can count on it, Ryan replied with a smile before walking away. Later that night, Emily changed into comfortable clothes, expecting a quiet evening. Then, the doorbell rang. Surprised, she opened the door to find Ryan standing there, holding something in his hand. Emily was surprised to see Ryan standing at her door and quickly opened it. For a moment, she let herself feel something familiar and warm. "Did you forget something?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," Ryan replied. "You." Before she could respond, he stepped forward, wrapping his arms around her and kissing her. Emily froze as he pulled back, holding a thin white box between them. "I meet an important business partner tomorrow," Ryan stammered. "I can talk confidently to him, but with you, I always struggle." He handed her the box, his hand trembling. "I hope this shows how I feel. Call me anytime." Emily watched silently as Ryan walked back to his truck and drove away. She brought the box inside, opened it, and found a CD and a note. When she played the disc, Randy Travis's "Can I Trust You with My Heart" began to play. The note repeated the song's question. That night, Emily called Ryan, her voice trembling as she said, "Yes." Ryan sounded confused. "What?" "You can trust me with your heart," she whispered. "I'll be right back," Ryan shouted. Soon, he was back at her door, scooping her into his arms. "I love you, Emily," he said. "I feel the same way," Emily replied. That night, they made love for the first time. But even then, she hadn't told him she loved him outright. Now, thinking of that night, Emily cried. She had loved him all along. It was so clear now, but it was too late. She set the white box aside and picked up the black one. It had been 3 weeks since she'd last seen or spoken to Ryan, and true to his word, he had stayed away. That Friday, David suggested, "Want to eat out? How about Kelly's downtown?" "No," Emily snapped. "Ryan and I used to go there." David rolled his eyes. "Fine. Let's try the new bar and grill near my work." "I'll drive," she replied. "Pick me up at 5. David agreed, and that evening, they headed to a pub on Easton Avenue. But from the moment they entered, Emily felt uncomfortable. The bartender and waitress exchanged disdainful glances as they walked in. As they sat in a booth near the back, Emily froze. Ryan was sitting at the bar. Her stomach dropped. "Did you know he'd be here?" she asked David suspiciously. David smirked. "Of course not." But Emily wasn't convinced. She knew David too well. Before she could press him further, David got up and walked to the bar, pretending to notice Ryan. "Hey, buddy. Didn't see you there." Ryan ignored him, focused on his drink. David leaned closer, grinning smugly. "Don't get upset. She picked the better man, and it wasn't you." Ryan finally turned, his face cold. "Yeah, she picked you." "That's right," David gloated. "She chose me over you." David walked back to the booth, laughing. Emily was horrified. Ryan didn't deserve this. She watched as he finished his drink, then walked toward her table. The bartender called out, "This one's on the house, Ryan." Stopping at her table, Ryan glared at Emily. "That was low, even for you. Did you enjoy seeing me humiliated? I promised to stay away, and I did. Is this what I get for it? You two are perfect for each other." "Ryan, I didn't know he'd do that," Emily said, her voice trembling. "You have to believe me. I didn't even know you'd be here." Ryan shook his head. "Why should I believe you? After what you did, I don't trust you. And I don't like him." At that moment, David returned. "Still here? Haven't you had enough?" he taunted. Ryan stared at him, his hand clenched into a fist. Emily remembered the time Ryan had taught her how to punch properly and saw the flicker of fear in David's eyes. A waitress approached, carrying drinks. "This isn't the place, Ryan," she said firmly. Without taking his eyes off David, Ryan replied, "You're probably right, Amanda." He stepped back, turned, and left the pub. David followed him to the door but didn't go outside. Amanda set the drinks down, shaking her head. "So, you dumped Ryan for that idiot?" "This is the 3rd time he's done this to Ryan." When David returned to the booth, clearly irritated, he demanded, "What did he say to you?" Before Emily could answer, a man approached their table. "I'm Mark," he said, his tone direct. "I was at your wedding with Ryan." "I'm sorry, I don't remember you," Emily replied, embarrassed. Mark didn't flinch. "I'm one of Ryan's friends. Tonight's meal is on the house, but you need to leave now and never come back." David laughed mockingly, but Mark's expression didn't waver. "Ryan won't cause trouble, But if he sees you again, run. He won't be merciful. I'm not afraid of him, David retorted. Don't say you weren't warned, Mark replied before walking away. Emily ate in silence, furious with David for setting Ryan up. She liked Mark and his wife and wished she could return to the pub someday, but David had already ruined that by not even leaving a tip. That night, Emily and David had their first serious fight. David couldn't understand why she seemed to side with Ryan, and Emily realized something unsettling. If Ryan wanted to, he could reappear in her life at any time. David wouldn't be able to stop him. The realization left Emily feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief. Tears flowed as the memories became overwhelming. She knew she had to keep working through the boxes. A week later, Ryan's cousin Claire entered Emily's office, her expression sharp and professional. She approached Emily's desk, setting down an attaché case with a loud thud. "You're not very good at keeping promises," Claire hissed. "I'm sorry," Emily stammered. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "But it did," Claire snapped, picking up Emily's nameplate. "Are you still Emily Harper?" "Yes," Emily replied. "Good," Claire said, opening the case and pulling out a white folder. "You've been served." She tossed a black box onto the desk. "You stupid, cheating witch. My cousin was too good for you, and you broke his heart. Listen to the CD. It's beautiful, though you don't deserve it." Claire stormed out, pausing briefly to exchange words with Anna. Emily saw Anna hand Claire something, which made Claire laugh as she walked away. Anna returned to her desk with a satisfied smile. Emily, now alone with Laura and Megan, opened the black box and pulled out a CD. There was no card this time. "Do you want to listen now, or wait until the end of the day?" Megan asked. "In the car," Emily replied. Claire said it was beautiful. Once in the car, Emily inserted the disc. Garth Brooks' The Dance began to play, its poignant lyrics reflecting Ryan's bittersweet feelings about their time together. Despite the pain, it was clear he cherished the memories. Laura and Megan cried, moved by the song's message, but Emily remained stoic, though she finally understood Ryan's words. She placed the CD back in the box, knowing she would see Ryan one last time when their divorce was finalized. The divorce settlement split everything evenly, except for Ryan's business, which Emily had no interest in. She signed the papers and walked away from the life they had shared. A month after the 6-month waiting period, Emily married David. His medical practice was thriving, and they bought a house close to Ryan's. At first, things seemed promising, but as David's practice grew, he worked later and later. One Friday night, his secretary called to say David would be working late again. Feeling restless, Emily decided to bring him dinner at the office. When she arrived, only 2 cars were in the lot, Jones and another unfamiliar vehicle. Suspicious, Emily unlocked the office door and followed the faint sound of laughter coming from an exam room. When she opened the door, she found David with another woman. Rage overtook her. Without thinking, she hurled the chicken cacciatore she had brought at them and stormed out. She got into her car and drove aimlessly, alternating between fury and hysterical laughter at the absurdity of it all. Finally, she called Megan, who was at a bachelorette party. Emily explained what had happened and begged Megan to meet her. They agreed to meet outside the pub on Easton Avenue. When Emily arrived, she found herself reflecting on the pain and humiliation she had caused Ryan. Now, faced with David's betrayal, she finally understood what Ryan must have felt seeing her with another man. Tears streamed down her face as Megan and Laura got into the car. "What's wrong?" Megan asked gently. Emily struggled to get the words out, but eventually recounted what she had witnessed. "I walked in on him, with some 40-year-old bleach blonde on the exam table," Emily growled. Megan and Laura exchanged looks, not surprised by David's actions. "We've always thought David was an idiot," Megan said bluntly. Laura added, "What goes around comes around." "I know," Emily admitted through tears. "I feel betrayed and humiliated. Now I understand the pain I caused Ryan. I never really felt it before." Laura and Megan didn't scold her further, though they clearly wanted to. "What are you going to do now?" Laura asked. "I don't know. I'm so confused," Emily replied. After a moment of silence, she straightened up and said, "I'm going home to confront him. What he did is unacceptable." Do you want us to come with you? Megan asked. No, Emily said firmly. I need to do this on my own. They stepped out of the car and watched Emily drive away. Unsure what to do next, they went back into the pub, where they spotted Ryan at the bar. He greeted them warmly, but they responded coolly, which confused him. I'm sorry, Ryan said, puzzled. I'll leave. Ryan, wait, Megan called. It's not what you think. We need to talk to you. Ryan glanced at his dinner companion, who gave him a nod of approval. He joined them at their table, his expression cautious. What's going on? He asked. Why are you giving me the cold shoulder? It's not you, Laura explained. We just got some bad news tonight. Ryan's expression darkened. Does it have to do with Emily? He asked warily. Megan hesitated, then said, She caught David cheating tonight. Ryan froze, his face going blank before he let out a bitter laugh. Karma's a witch, he said, shaking his head. Why are you telling me this? No reason, Laura said quietly. We just thought you should know. Ryan's demeanor softened slightly. Where is she now? He asked. She went home to confront him, Megan replied. That's a bad idea, Ryan muttered. David's a coward, but he could hurt her. She's defenseless. Laura bristled. If he's such a coward, why didn't you fight for her? Ryan looked at her sadly. She said she didn't love me anymore. She chose him. Fighting wouldn't have changed that. It would have just made things worse. Do you understand now? Laura nodded, embarrassed. Megan pressed further. So what are you going to do? Nothing, Ryan replied firmly. She's not my problem anymore. You don't mean that, Megan said. You loved her once. That was a long time ago. People change, and so do feelings, Ryan said. His tone was resolute, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of pain. Laura, undeterred, said, Ryan, you're one of the most honorable men I know. Even after everything, you never let people down. Emily was your best friend once. Despite the hurt, you didn't abandon her. You're not the type to walk away when someone's in trouble. Ryan sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. This is a family matter now. It's between her and David. If she ever needs real help, I'll be there. But this doesn't qualify. She hurt me, and now he hurt her. Let them figure it out. After a moment of silence, Ryan stood. Ladies, I hope next time we meet, it's under better circumstances. Maybe we can share a drink and laugh. For now, I need to get back to my date. As he walked away, he added, If anything bad happens, let me know. They nodded and watched him return to his table. His companion seemed to scold him gently, but then she placed a hand on his and whispered something. Ryan pushed his food away, and the two eventually left. Megan and Laura stayed behind, wondering how Emily would handle confronting David. They left the bar in low spirits. By Monday, Emily had called in sick to work, and again on Tuesday. Megan grew increasingly concerned about Emily's absence from work. On Tuesday, she called David's office, where she learned he was working as usual. Leaving Emily a message, she received no response. By Wednesday morning, Megan and Laura decided to visit Emily's house if she didn't show up. At 9:05 a.m., Emily walked into the office wearing large sunglasses. Alarmed, Megan and Laura quickly ushered her to the ladies' room. When Emily removed her glasses, they saw the bruises. Horrified, they demanded to know what happened. Through tears, Emily recounted the weekend. When I got home Friday night, David was waiting for me. He yelled, Where have you been? Who were you talking to? Why did you throw food at us? He even called the woman he was with an important client. Emily's voice cracked. I told him, so important that you had to entertain her on your exam table? David exploded. From now on, if I work late, you'll just have to deal with it. If you don't like it, leave. Do you understand? Terrified, Emily nodded and retreated to clean up, as he ordered. The next morning, she woke with a swollen face, but David was gone. He returned briefly on Sunday afternoon without explanation. Emily didn't ask. That night, David demanded sex, but Emily declined. He left again Monday morning without a word. Megan and Laura listened silently, their shock quickly turning to anger. You need to go to the police and have him arrested for assault, Megan urged. No, Emily cried. I can't. I want this marriage to work. I already ruined one marriage. I can't give up on this one. Both women were furious. He assaulted you, Laura snapped. Do you really think this will be the last time? I know, Emily said quietly, but I just can't give up yet. Megan threw her hands up in frustration. I don't know what else to say. I'm done, she muttered, walking away. Laura lingered, taking a quick picture of Emily's bruises with her phone before leaving. Emily barely noticed, lost in her own despair. Later that day, Laura drove to Ryan's auto shop. She found him working on a car, wiping his hands with a rag as she approached. Good to see you, Laura. Car trouble? He asked. No, Laura replied. I need to talk to you. Privately. Ryan frowned, but led her to his office. Once inside, Laura blurted, Emily's having problems with David. Ryan's expression darkened. Any problems with that creep are no longer my concern. Remember when you gave her the Beatles box? Laura asked. Yeah, didn't work out. She ripped my heart out. Why should I care now? Laura pulled out her phone and showed him the picture of Emily's bruises. Ryan stared at it, his jaw tightening. What do you want from me? He asked coldly. Are you going to do something? Laura pressed. You said you'd protect her. Call the police, Ryan replied curtly. It looks like assault. That's it? That's all you have to say? Laura's voice rose with frustration. She had an affair, she broke her vows. But that doesn't mean she deserves this. Ryan's voice was firm. She's not my wife. She chose him over me. She made her bed. Let her lie in it. Because you love her, Laura declared. Isn't that reason enough? Ryan's face hardened. I loved her. Not anymore. Tell her to get a divorce. I won't get involved. Disappointed, Laura shook her head. I thought better of you, Ryan. Ryan stood abruptly, his anger barely restrained. She hurt me. She left me for him. I'm sorry if I let you down, but I can't help her. Laura left, apologizing as she walked to her car. Ryan stayed rooted in the shop, his expression unreadable. Pain, anger, and something else flickered in his eyes, but he said nothing as she drove away. By Thursday, Emily returned to work, still bruised but more composed. She remained irritable, but by Monday morning, her demeanor had shifted. She greeted everyone warmly and even smiled. Megan and Laura pulled her into the restroom. What's going on? Megan asked. Emily hesitated before saying, David was attacked Friday night outside his office. Whoever did it made him promise to apologize to me and threatened to come back if he didn't. Megan's eyes widened. Do you know who it was? David doesn't, but I do, Emily replied, a small smile forming. I heard him cursing Ryan in the shower. How would Ryan even know? Laura asked. I told him after work on Wednesday, Laura admitted sheepishly. Emily hugged Laura tightly. Thank you. Don't thank me, Laura said. I didn't attack your husband. Maybe you should thank Ryan. I don't know, Emily said hesitantly. He's not exactly fond of me. Even so, you should thank him, Laura insisted. That evening, Emily, Megan, and Laura went to the Easton Avenue pub. They spotted Ryan sitting at the bar, lost in thought, a bandage wrapped around his hand. Megan nudged Emily forward. Nervous, Emily approached and sat beside him. That must hurt, she said softly, gesturing to his bandaged hand. Without looking at her, Ryan replied, It's not that bad. What do you need, Emily? Please, Emily said, her voice trembling. I just want to talk, not fight. Do you mind? Ryan nodded but still didn't meet her eyes. I wanted to thank you for what you did Friday. I know it was you. After everything I've done, you still helped me when I needed someone. I had to thank you in person, Emily said earnestly. Finally, Ryan turned to her, pulling his hand away. His gaze was sharp, his voice cutting. You wanted to thank me? It wasn't necessary. Were you worried about me when you left? Did you care about my pain? No. You only cared about yourself. Why do you care now? You got what you wanted, a doctor's wife instead of a mechanic's. You used me, Emily. Ryan's face hardened as he spoke. My hands hurt. My girlfriend dumped me for helping you, and I could still end up in jail. Ryanoro, you'll have someone else in your bed, and I'll still be alone with my pain. Why don't you all just leave me alone? His words cut like a knife, and Emily's face paled. She hadn't truly understood the depth of his pain until now. What he had endured because of her betrayal, humiliation, and indifference. Emily opened her mouth to speak, but Ryan silenced her with a wave of his bandaged hand. "If you don't leave, then I will," he spat, sliding off the bar stool. As he walked out, he threw a disapproving glance at Laura and Megan. Shaken, Emily stared after him. Megan nudged her. "Go after him, Emily." But by the time they got outside, Ryan's truck was already disappearing into the night. Defeated, they drove to Megan's house to process the night. Emily pulled out the last blue box. There was no note, only a CD. She inserted it into the player, and Randy Travis's "I Told You So" played, the lyrics haunting her. She remembered the night it arrived, a small package in the mail, addressed to her in Ryan's handwriting. Opening it at Megan's apartment, she had cried listening to the song. "Suppose I call you tonight and tell you I love you. Suppose I cried and said I've finally learned my lesson. Would you cry with me or laugh and say, 'I told you so'?" The message was clear. Ryan was done with her. He had moved on. For the first time in years, Emily sobbed uncontrollably. She had been foolish, giving up a man who had loved her so deeply. The pain of knowing she could never reclaim what they had was unbearable. Shortly after receiving the box, Emily quit her job at the insurance company and took a receptionist job at a local doctor's office. It didn't pay well, but it allowed her to escape the judgment of her former coworkers. She stayed with Megan for 3 months before moving into a small apartment rented to her by an elderly patient. As her divorce from David progressed, she began receiving alimony, which, combined with her job, was enough to cover her rent. Desperate to reconnect with Ryan, Emily called and left messages, but he never responded. She emailed him repeatedly, but there was no reply. Emily became more determined, convinced she had to try. One Friday, Emily and Megan planned a night out. As they pulled into the parking lot of Megan's apartment, they were surprised to see Claire and Anna waiting for them. "What are they doing here?" Megan murmured. "I have no idea, but I don't like it," Emily said, her stomach twisting. Claire approached as Emily and Megan got out of the car. "Hi, Emily. Anna and I need to talk to you about something important. Can we go inside?" Emily hesitated. "What's this about, Claire? I don't want any trouble." "It's not about trouble," Anna interjected gently. "It's just something you need to hear." Reluctantly, Emily agreed, and they all went inside. Seated at the kitchen table, Anna finally spoke. "Emily, I know you've been calling and emailing Ryan. He hasn't told you to stop, but he wants you to. He's just too polite to say it himself. What business is it of yours?" Emily snapped. "If I want to contact him, I will." Claire intervened. "Please, Emily, hear us out. Ryan and Anna are getting married next Saturday." The words hit Emily like a physical blow. Her eyes filled with tears as she struggled to process the news. Anna leaned forward. "Please stop contacting him. I'm a jealous woman, and I'm not comfortable with another woman reaching out to my husband." Claire handed Emily a thin red box. "We're sorry things turned out this way, but you needed to know. Listen to the CD inside." After they left, Emily turned to Megan. "Did you know about this?" Megan hesitated before admitting, "Yes. Anna told us a few weeks ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I knew it would hurt." Trembling, Emily opened the red box and played the CD. The Shirelles' Foolish Little Girl filled the room. "You broke his heart and made him cry. And now he's found someone new. Foolish little girl, you didn't want him when he wanted you." The lyrics drove the truth home. Ryan's love had been the greatest gift she had ever received, and she had carelessly discarded it. Now, Anna had claimed that gift, someone who understood its value. Emily sat silently, tears streaming down her face as she realized there was nothing she could do to reclaim what she had lost. Ryan and Anna were likely celebrating their upcoming wedding, completely unaware of Emily's anguish. For the first time, Emily fully understood the magnitude of her mistakes. She had thought she could fix her life and regain what she had with Ryan, but now she knew better. It was over. As the song ended, Emily whispered to herself, "He was the love of my life, and I threw it all away." Megan sat quietly beside her, unsure of what to say. There was nothing left to fix. Emily finally accepted that she needed to stop trying to reclaim what she had lost. Some mistakes couldn't be undone,